ABC General Hospital spoilers reveal that a new shock begins to ripple quietly through Port Charles as Liz finds herself haunted by a memory she once dismissed as meaningless. At first, it is nothing more than a flicker of unease, a subtle shift in Willow's expression during a late-night conversation, a hesitation that did not fit the gentle, open persona she so carefully presented to the world. Liz had ignored it then, attributing it to stress, to exhaustion, to the overwhelming pressures Willow had been carrying. But now, with Dante Falconeri circling closer to a truth that refuses to stay buried, those fragments of recollection begin to sharpen with unsettling clarity. The realization creeps in slowly. There was something deliberate in Willow's behavior, something calculated beneath the surface of vulnerability. The moment that truly unsettles Liz is the memory of a specific evening when Willow insisted everything was fine, even as her hands trembled slightly while pouring tea. Liz remembers asking a simple question, one that should have drawn a straightforward answer, yet Willow paused, as though measuring every word before speaking. It was not fear that Liz saw in her eyes. It was control. Control over what was being revealed and what was being withheld. At the time, Liz had brushed it aside. Now, paired with Dante's mounting suspicions, that same moment feels like a crack in a carefully polished facade. Dante, meanwhile, has moved beyond instinct. What once began as a faint sense that something about Willow's story did not align has evolved into a structured, methodical investigation. He reviews timelines, cross-checks statements, and revisits overlooked reports. Each inconsistency, however minor, adds weight to his growing certainty that Willow has been manipulating more than just emotions. There are discrepancies in her accounts, small shifts in detail that suggest rehearsal rather than recollection. The more Dante analyzes, the more he sees patterns instead of coincidences. He begins to suspect that what appeared to be spontaneous decisions may have been strategic moves designed to steer perception and avoid scrutiny. When Liz finally confesses to Dante that she remembers Willow deleting call logs after borrowing her phone, the atmosphere changes. The revelation does not explode dramatically. Instead, it settles like a heavy fog between them. Liz struggles with guilt, realizing that her silence may have allowed a deception to flourish. She had wanted to believe in Willow's goodness, had defended her when others questioned her motives. Now she feels complicit in sustaining an illusion. Her internal conflict is raw and relentless. Does loyalty mean protecting someone from exposure, or does it mean confronting the truth no matter how painful? For Dante, Liz's admission is not merely a detail, it is validation. It strengthens the framework of evidence he has been assembling. He uncovers a narrow window of time one Willow claimed to have spent at home that contradicts digital records placing her elsewhere. This single inconsistency shifts the trajectory of the investigation. The new adjustment he feared is no longer theoretical. It is tangible. He sees now that the narrative Willow constructed may have been designed to misdirect suspicion entirely. What once seemed like a desperate reaction might actually have been a calculated maneuver. As Dante edges closer to clarity, he feels the weight of what that clarity will cost. Willow is not just a suspect in an abstract sense, she is woven into the lives of people he cares about. Exposing her actions will fracture relationships and ignite emotional fallout that cannot be contained, yet Dante cannot turn away. His commitment to justice overrides personal discomfort. The closer he gets, the more he senses a seismic shift approaching a moment when trust will either shatter or be redefined. Liz watches this progression with a mixture of dread and reluctant admiration. She sees Dante's determination, the quiet intensity in his gaze when he studies the evidence. There is a steadiness in him that contrasts sharply with her own wavering emotions. She feels torn between fear of what the truth might reveal and the strange relief that comes from no longer living in uncertainty. If Willow has indeed orchestrated events from the shadows, then confronting that reality is the only path forward. The most chilling realization for both of them is not that Willow may have lied, but that she may have anticipated every possible reaction. Dante uncovers signs that she adjusted her story in response to subtle shifts in questioning, preemptively addressing suspicions before they were fully formed. This level of foresight suggests planning, not panic. It reframes everything: her tears, her vulnerability, her appeals for understanding. Each could have been part of a broader strategy to maintain control. As the pieces converge, a profound explosion of belief looms on the horizon. Dante understands that once he presents what he has gathered, there will be no returning to innocence. The revelation will demand accountability and force everyone involved to confront uncomfortable truths about perception and manipulation. Liz braces herself for the emotional impact, knowing that her own testimony may serve as the catalyst. In the quiet moments before confrontation, Dante reflects on how close he is to resolution. The truth is no longer abstract. It feels within reach, like a door slightly ajar. Yet he also senses the volatility behind it. Opening that door will unleash consequences that cannot be contained. Still, he moves forward. Because for him, justice is not about preserving comfort, it is about honoring reality. And so the tension builds, silent yet electric. Liz stands at the edge of revelation, aware that her memories have become weapons of truth. Dante stands at the brink of exposure, his resolve hardened by evidence. Somewhere at the center of it all is Willow, perhaps unaware that the narrative she so carefully crafted is unraveling thread by thread. The explosion has not yet occurred, but its tremor can already be felt, a profound reckoning that will redefine trust, loyalty, and the fragile architecture of belief in Port Charles. Dante can feel it now. The truth is no longer a distant theory, drifting in fragments. It is close enough to disturb his sleep, close enough to change the way he looks at everyone connected to Willow. What began as a faint unease has evolved into something undeniable, something structured and dangerous. Every timeline he revisits tightens the net. Every digital record, every subtle contradiction in testimony, every anxious glance Willow once offered when certain names were mentioned, they no longer exist in isolation. They align. They form a pattern that is too deliberate to ignore. The new shock does not come from a dramatic confession or a sudden revelation. It comes from precision. Dante uncovers a data trail that places Willow somewhere she swore she had never been. A security timestamp. A financial transaction processed minutes after she claimed to be home. It is not just inconsistency, it is strategy. The realization hits him with brutal clarity. Willow did not simply react to events as they unfolded. She adjusted them. She curated her narrative in real time. She anticipated suspicion before it fully formed. And that is the part that chills him. Because if Willow anticipated suspicion, then she anticipated consequences, which means she was prepared to manipulate outcomes. The closer Dante gets, the more the situation transforms from uncertainty into something far more disturbing. What he once feared might be a mistake now looks like intent, the so-called crazy adjustment in the case. The unexplained shift that never quite made sense suddenly reveals its shape. It was engineered. The emotional appeals, the carefully timed vulnerability, the way she redirected blame with subtle compassion rather than open defense. It was all positioning. When Dante finally overlays the digital evidence with witness recollections, the structure becomes undeniable. Willow was present at a critical turning point, a moment connected to a decision that altered the entire trajectory of the crisis. And she lied about it, not once, but repeatedly. The crime itself may not have been explosive in execution, but its implications are catastrophic, because it suggests motive, it suggests forethought. And it suggests that the image Willow built, the selfless protector, the woman guided by empathy, may have been a shield for something far darker. Dante feels the ground shift beneath him. The new shock is not only about what Willow did, it is about who she might actually be. Elizabeth senses the change in him before he even says a word. The weight in his voice has hardened. The hesitation is gone. In its place is conviction, and that terrifies her more than doubt ever did, because conviction means the line has been crossed. Conviction means Dante is no longer asking whether Willow is capable of wrongdoing. He is preparing to prove it, and the proof is coming together faster than anyone expected. A private message recovered from a deleted account. A call placed from an unregistered number traced back to a device briefly in Willow's possession. A shift in insurance documentation that benefited her indirectly but significantly. None of it alone screams guilt, but together they create a suffocating picture. A calculated move disguised as coincidence, a choice disguised as desperation. Dante realizes something else that sends a surge of adrenaline through him. The timeline of Willow's deception overlaps with a critical emotional turning point in her life, which means her crime may not have been random. It may have been personal, a response to fear, to jealousy, to loss, or worse, to ambition. The thought is almost unbearable, because if motive becomes clear, the case transforms from suspicion into inevitability. And when that inevitability explodes, it will destroy more than reputations. Dante understands that exposing Willow's crime will detonate relationships across Port Charles. Families will fracture. Loyalties will be tested. The fragile stability that so many have clung to will collapse under the weight of betrayal. Yet he cannot step back. Not now. Not when the truth is no longer abstract, but measurable. The most haunting change is internal. He begins to replay every interaction he ever had with Willow, every moment she appeared composed while chaos swirled around her, every time she deflected attention with quiet strength. What once felt admirable now feels orchestrated. And that realization carries a psychological sting far deeper than anger. It is the slow erosion of trust not just in her, but in perception itself. Because if someone so convincingly compassionate can conceal something so serious, what does that mean about everyone else? The approaching exposure of Willow's crime becomes more than a legal turning point. It becomes a psychological reckoning. The haunting shift is not only in what will be revealed, it is in how people will reinterpret the past once the truth surfaces. Every memory will be re-examined, every gesture reconsidered, every tear re-evaluated. And Dante knows that once he takes the final step, there will be no controlling the aftermath. He stands on the edge of that step now. The evidence is nearly airtight, the timeline almost complete, the motive emerging from the shadows. All that remains is confrontation, and confrontation will trigger a shockwave unlike anything poor Charles has felt in months. Because this is not merely about guilt. It is about identity. If Willow's crime is exposed, the transformation will be irreversible. She will no longer be seen as a victim of circumstance, but as the architect of deception. And that shift will be haunting in its permanence. Dante feels the pressure building the tension before impact. He knows he is moments away from igniting something that cannot be extinguished. Yet he also knows that stepping away would mean surrendering to illusion, and he refuses to live inside illusion. The truth is close enough now to taste, and when it breaks through, the shock will not just reveal a crime, it will redefine everything.